for all students. Staff and principals should have the resources they need to bring up students to their maximum potential and help make them productive, critical thinkers who will be successful adults.
Thank you. Rick?
Hello, my name is Rich Mueller. I live in Allendale. My wife and I have moved down here 21 years ago. We have right now 2 NRHEG graduates. My daughter is a junior this year. And why I'm running for school board is because this is my second time on the board, and I have learned so much about our district and our schools. And I want to make sure that our staff and our students get the tools they need to make sure they get the best education that's possible.
Thank you. Rick?
Name is Rick Schultz, lifelong resident of the area. Family born and raised here, and wife Jackie and daughter Hallie is currently a junior in the secondary here in Richland. You know, when you talk about wanting, and these people hit it very well, about learning the process and how the school system works. As you all know, I've been on the board quite some time, but I've learned a lot in that time, and actually come to appreciate the time I've spent working with the others and administration to move the school forward and actually enjoy the position if there is such a thing. So, yeah, I've appreciated that and would like to continue serving the residents in the district in the future.
All right. And again, Aaron Phillips couldn't be with us. He sent in something basically kind of covering this a little bit. So I'm going to read it. You can pretend I'm Aaron or whatever works for you. Somebody who's in better shape than I am. Hello, my name is Aaron Phillips. I live on a farm near Heartland with my wife of 26 years, Jeanette, and our 2 youngest children. Andrew, a senior at NRHEG, and Faith, an 8th grader here. We have 2 older daughters that are both married. Morgan, 24, lives in Heartland, and Madeline, 24, lives in Clarks Grove. Madeline is a 5th grade teacher in Ellendale, and her husband Darren is a math teacher in Richland. I'm running for this position for many reasons. First is that I have a vested interest in the school system. This is Andrew's last year at NRHEG, but Faith will still be there for 4 more years, and I anticipate Madeline and Darren teaching there for many years to come. The second reason is I am very impressed with the job that the new superintendent, Mr. Myhock, is doing. I would really like to work hand in hand with him to make sure the school district's vision is upheld. The third reason I am running is to make sure we don't go through a period like we did these last couple of years. Recommendations that were made at a state level were implemented at NRHEG. I feel these were geared more toward the metropolitan area. We need to make sure we as a board are doing what is best for our rural Minnesota school and not what is best for the larger schools in the metropolitan areas. I feel that taking kids out of school for that long of a period did more damage than the virus did itself. I want to make sure we make the right decisions when it comes to what is best for our children, our teachers, and our community. In addition, we need to stop the movement toward taking God out of our schools. There's a movement happening across the country that is trying to take God out of our classrooms. Our country was founded on the principles of our Father, and taking those principles out of our schools is the last thing we should be doing. Also, drug use and bullying are prevalent in all schools. I feel there needs to be more education on the dangers associated with them. I want to be a voice for parents, students, staff, and the community. Everyone deserves to be heard. Here are my hopes for the direction of the NRHEG district over the next 4 years. To me, the number one action item is to do a better job of educating students on the dangers of drug use and bullying. Every student should feel safe while they are at school and be able to learn in a drug-free and bully-free environment. To make up the ground that we lost during the COVID years, to make sure the community members are heard, the long-term success of our school district is greatly impacted by the community. To be able to share my life experiences to make this a very successful board. I've worked with kids through coaching. I'm currently the assistant varsity baseball coach and volunteering, been on other boards, including president of the Albert Lee Youth Baseball Board, and been in sales for 20 plus years. So I've done lots of negotiating, built relationships, and am an effective communicator. Lastly, teachers need to make sure they feel appreciated. We want this to be the school district of choice for not only children, but for teachers as well. So again, I guess if anybody's sitting here, anybody out there listening, if you have other questions for Aaron that come up tonight that you're interested, I'm sure you can get a hold of him and ask those questions, he'd be happy to answer that. So, moving on, we'll start with you this time, Pat. We'll just kind of work our way around. In your view, what has this district done well over the last 5 or so years?
I think this district has done many things well. Number one, we've been very fiscally responsible in our spending and keeping the level that we need to have the things available for our students and staff. I think that would be my number one thing. I think we've come a ways with mental health, having people available for students, and in some respects staff too, if there are any problems. I do think our staff, and we're lucky enough to be a district where we are small enough to be like family and to be able to get to know each other. Not that there isn't room for improvement in places, but I think everyone tries really hard to make this a very successful district.
All right. Rich?
The budget has been a big thing. I mean, we've had to really tighten the reins on a lot of stuff just to stay close to, even budget or whatever. Yeah, we've had some years where deficit spending, but that happens. I think with COVID, it really hurt us. I think we're bouncing back from that. And just, like I said, trying to get the best we can, best tools we can for the teachers and the staff, and the mental health thing is a big one too that we've been working on.
Some of the things we've done well is that we do employ a quality staff here, and back to repeating here, it's like everybody has mentioned, it's the dedicated staff that really do care. Something that probably is unique, to larger schools in the metro. Some of the accomplishments you said in the last 5 years, I am very proud of our improvements to facilities. Brick and mortar doesn't necessarily teach a student, but it does offer an opportunity, and it is, education is competitive. We are competing with our neighbors, whether we like that or not. We compete with that for enrollment. Our enrollment has declined, and we need to be competitive and attract people to the community, and the school is the first step in that. So I'm proud of some of those accomplishments, and hope that to continue.
I think everybody had really good points, and I'll say it again, I haven't kept up with all the technical parts in school. I only have my view as a parent. I'm really busy doing other things, but I think community-wise, our communities, we're a good team. I think our staff is a good team, along with our parents and our students, and I think when you create a good team that enjoys working together, then everybody just flows well together, and then everything, education falls into place, and teaching falls into place, and it all intertwines and works well together. The buildings, they look great. That's, like you said, it's not the best thing, but if you have a great environment that feels safe, that looks great, that's kept up, the kids will then, and the staff will all work together in that space too. So I look forward to learning more, and I know I need to. So.
All right, Rich, you get to start with this one.
Yeah.
What is the biggest issue facing this district, or what ways can we continue to improve? What areas?
I think Rick mentioned it. Enrollment's a big one. I mean, we're losing students to other districts, and we got to figure out why we're losing those students, what we can do to keep them, what we can do to bring in students from other districts that want to be here. Retention of staff has always been a big one. We got to figure out why we're losing staff members, what we can do to keep them. I think those are a couple of the biggest issues we have.
I agree 100% with Rich there on retaining quality staff. Is a challenge. We all know what the environment is. A lot of now hiring signs out there, and we've had to experience that. Some of our negotiations recently in the last year or two that we need to be competitive and attract this quality staff. The student issue, I always, through the years of serving here, felt we were very efficient in that 900 student enrollment, and we have fallen below that, and we do need to make sure that we are promoting and offering quality curriculum that attracts and keeps us in that area, so that we can offer an option for students and provide that quality education. So, a couple of the biggies, I believe.
Well, student population is one of the things that we run on paper when I do keep up with the school board minutes, but I agree, you guys touched base on it, and staff too. I think people are moving around and shifting and trying to find a good fit for themselves. So how do we create a great space to bring kids in, to bring staff in, and working hand in hand with our communities, because if our communities, our towns grow, our school grows, our towns grow. So that increases tax base for both the school and the city, which, that's pretty huge too. They're going to work hand in hand. I think we're still really lucky that we have a really great school district, and, Panther Nation's pretty cool thing to be part of. So to make sure that we're utilizing it the best way we possibly can is pretty important, to make sure everybody's head is moving and our team is working strong to make sure our kids and our parents and staff and everybody's getting everything out of it.
I reiterate too about the acquiring and keeping good staff, quality staff here. The enrollment, the drop in enrollment, is a concern. There's some other things as far as student and academic achievement, where we stopped. COVID kind of really hit us hard that way. But I feel like by looking at the state report card that we are at an area where we can only go up, because we were there before. We've done a really good job before. So between student academic achievement, making sure we have a really good early ed program that we're focused in, that there's these, our PLCs, our professional learning communities, our vertical conversations between, say, preschool, kindergarten, first, that we keep those going, professional development for staff, so they can renew and find ways to work together to improve us. I also don't think it's fair that funding for our kids is always less in a rural district than it is in metro, but that's been a problem for years, so I don't think that's going anywhere soon. Good mentoring program for new staff, teacher development, and evaluation. A good program for that too. I think staff really needs to feel supported. I think we need to have people that they can go to. I think it would be terribly hard not to have someone to turn to and say, I need help, can you help me? I'm not exactly sure where I'm going with this, And I mean, we do that, but I think we just need to really make sure that we have that too. So, yeah, I think that's about it.
I love how sometimes your answers segue to my next question a little bit, because it sounds like we rehearsed this somewhat. Speaking of money, how do we deal with, we've all kind of mentioned the money from the state and everything. How do we deal with that uncertainty? It's every 2 years that the state sets how much money we're going to get. How do we plan ahead as a district without really knowing? And in a sub question beneath that, how can we make our voices heard? Like you said, is it ever going to change up there the way it is? But how can we make our voices heard, from a school board standpoint, to try to make things more equitable? Rick, you get to start with this one.
Thank you. Well, first off, the uncertainty from the state funding has always been an issue as long as I've been on the board, and then prior to that, and will be long after I'm not on the board. But how you manage that uncertainty is that you carry a fund balance, and I think that's one thing back to what we're proud of in this district, and the taxpayers should be also equally as proud. That we do have a roughly 3-month reserve in the bank, so that in the event that funding from the state doesn't come through, we do have a cushion there that we can turn to keep programs running. And that's one thing that I've always been proud of, and think that should be very appreciated and very treated very respectfully, and we have as a board and prior boards before me. So that's the big money issue, and again, sometimes you get caught up all about money, but you don't do things without it. So you have to start with that, and the finances are a large part of what a board does. As far as the larger schools having different formulations and different it's been that way, and Pat hit it exactly right. We're not going to get that changed. However, we're a local government that represents the people in our circle of whatever it is, 30, 40 miles here, and the system does work. So I don't think we should ever underestimate ourselves that we can't make some noise. We are members of a rural education school board association that can get loud, and we can make our voices heard, and I think we have accomplished. Ag to School credit has been a big plus that I've watched happen, in this time, and that has helped us do a lot of things here that we couldn't have ahead of that time. So proud of a few of those things, and I think we need to continue that work.
This was a question I was dreading. This is what I don't know a lot about, and it interests me. And all I know is from being on the city council for my 10 years and understanding budgets from that standpoint and understanding, the money that comes from the state. Typically, that always kind of stays the same. So I don't understand how the school stuff works. If it does it fluctuate? Can I ask the question?
Sure.
Does it fluctuate every year? Or they set it every 2 years?
Every 2 years they set, the legislature will set. So always on time never on time before the legislature ends. It's generally been in the 2% range, right around there for a while now that they've raised the funding.
So I'll need to learn a little bit, but from my experience from city council, a lot of that unfortunately comes from your taxpayers because they have to make up that difference. And doesn't always make everybody happy, but I think as long as you see value in what you're paying taxes for, which I think our district has done, and hopefully what we're going to continue to do, is make sure that our taxpayers and our parents see value in what they're actually paying in their taxes. So I think that's important. And unfortunately, in a small district, our school costs the same as it would if we had it in Minneapolis. But Minneapolis has more taxpayers, where we don't. So I think being creative and having different teams that focus on different things is going to be probably key. There's probably a good chance you already do that and are doing that, but continue to make sure that it works the same way.
I too look forward to learning more about school finance. The Ag School credit, I know, I've recognized that one before. That was a really great thing for us too. Like I said, we've been very lucky to be fiscally responsible and be able to do what we do in this district, and that says a lot about us. Just kind of looking through a few things, I see that the state kind of comes in at about around 44% of our student funding. And then to the federal government, it goes anywhere between 5 to 16%, which usually winds up on the bottom half of that. So then the school district is responsible to make up whatever else is there. And that doesn't seem like a lot from the federal government or anything. So the school district is responsible for a lot of things. So I too look forward to learning more about fiscal responsibility and keeping this district maintaining a positive fiscal balance on what we have and keep moving forward.
Good.
Well, finance isn't my strong point. That's why we have people that, kind of point us in the right direction. But Amy had mentioned it. Sometimes you have to be creative. And over the years, when you're coming up short, we have been very creative of how we can get things done with the lesser money that we have. And I think that's one thing that the district has really done well over the last years that I've been around here. Someone was listening. Lost my listening. Sorry.
All right, let's turn toward what happens in these buildings now too. you all have children, had children, and so on in this district. To what degree are students at NRHEG, 27 years, I can't pronounce it, on track for post-secondary readiness? Now that includes, of course, 4-year school, 2-year, the workforce, the military, all these different options they have. Are our students ready? And if not, how can we improve in that area? Amy, you get to go first.
I think some of them are ready, but I don't. I have one that wasn't ready. Moved out to Alexandria, thought she'd be ready, and she was back 3 months later, and that was what she wanted to do. So, disappointing for a parent because, of course, you want your child to go on to college and be successful. And now she's here living in my basement again, and that's fine. Eventually she did go back to school. It's hard to take our kids and say, figure out what you want to do. You're 16 years old, you're a sophomore, you play football, you play basketball, and now you play baseball, and you haven't had time for a job, you don't have any life experience, the people you've met are the people at school. So it's hard to tell those kids, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Because they see, I'm 18, if I live to be 100, that's a long time to have the same job, So how you get them right, I don't know. The life experiences, that's how I got where I'm at. But I'm a little bit older than a graduate from high school. So, how are we giving those kids those life experiences? How are we exposing them to things that they wouldn't know was even out there? How do you get them to learn that being a teacher is not bad, or being a mortician is not bad, or, being a farmer is good? Are we giving them exposure to those jobs? I know when I was in high school, we did a little bit of that. They brought in different staff that talked about their jobs, but you can talk to your blue in the face to an 18-year-old when they're not. So, we don't that too. But starting when they're young too, how many of these kids at 8 or 9 years old think they want to be a doctor, or think they want this or that, but think that when they graduate high school, they get to go to college for a little bit and get to be a doctor. It's going to take 8 years of this and 4 years of this. I have to do all this. So, life experience is starting, I'm glad we have school age. That's a great thing that we've done in preschool. We have a great preschool that's established, but starting when they're young, teaching kids when they're young and showing them what's out there. I worked with little kids for a long time. They're very receptive to what you're telling them.
With my 21-year-old, we call that adulting, learning adulting skills. It's not always fun.
We're still learning it.
Yeah, sometimes. Pat, readiness of our students?
Talking about getting them ready for a career. These days, a lot of them don't stick with a career for very long. They find something else. They move on. And my own children, and my son-in-law. My son-in-law, I think, has had 6 different jobs in the past 5 years, but he keeps being, he moves on. And so, for our kids, I think exposing them early, career pathways, starting to talk about things, real life experiences are really important. Making sure that our classes and our courses that are offered, we have different things offered that might be interesting to these kids to help them look at different careers, helping them on. Aligning them with what career technical education, maybe making sure that some of these kids can enter some of these critical careers as soon as they're out of high school, that they don't have to take much extra training in something that interests them. I just think for a career, we start talking early, and we start finding out what their interests are, and building on that. So, yeah.
Rich?
I think a lot of our students are ready. I mean, how ready are they? I mean, we've been working here in the building. We've put in the brand new shop that's giving students an interest in industrial arts and welding and all that stuff. We have the very nice fax room down there. In fact, I think we're starting to work here within the building to get kids directed in a certain direction of what they want to go. I believe the staff are also helping kids kind of giving some ideas of what could be done or what's out there to do. That's other students talking with other students. What are you going to do, and what have other students in the past have done too.
Yeah, repetitive here, but I think it's a percentage. You know, your question is how ready are our students, and to answer that, you know, I feel the majority are, and it's a percentage game that we play. Are we going to catch everyone? Absolutely not. We will have a situation where it takes a little bit longer for a student, and there's nothing wrong with that. Amy, be very proud that your child wanted to come back home. That's saying something for. So that's a success story also. But I think, like Rich and everyone has mentioned here, you know, we've adjusted educationally here at NRHEG with our investment tax. It's exciting to open the paper and see students cooking in an emergency type situation for the rest of the students. How great is that to have that hands-on? And I think we've truly adjusted it. And I won't say how many years ago, but it was you weren't anything unless you went for that 4-year degree and got that certificate. I think we've adjusted back from that and realized there are very good high-paying jobs, success stories out there that you can go out and hit the workforce and train. So very proud of what we've done. As a matter of fact, some other schools have come and toured our facilities to, wow, you guys are, this is neat to have, and we're proud of that. So we're in the right direction. Is the work done? Absolutely not. 10 years, this should be different. I mean, as it changes, we need to change, and I think we've been doing that, and I hope that continues.
You guys kind of hit on, we've had this email thing open, and I had received an email asking about the importance of career and technical education and some of the certifications and stuff that are kids. You guys hit that without me even really asking it, which is nice. But in addition, this person had sent, and by the way, if you're listening at home, you still want to send me an email at boardforum@nrheg.k12.mn.us. I might be able to pick that out yet before we're done and go with that. But, you know, another aspect that this person had asked, we talk about being creative in some of the things that we do, and we lose some of our students and their funds to outside sources, some of the PSEO things and some of the other opportunities they have. Any thoughts to, you know, without maybe having a lot of background on it, maybe we should be offering some online courses taught by some of our staff instead of sending them elsewhere. Like we offer those same, if we can find qualified staff, of course, some of those types of opportunities here. It's a creative way. I mean, this is new to me too, but any initial thoughts when that idea gets tossed out when we think about how to keep our money in here?
Well, this is what I don't know. This is kind of where I'm at too. Do we not offer that right now? No.
We don't have things that, like others,
College courses, our school.
we have college courses.
But in-house college courses.
We do have some, yeah, but we also lose kids to some other, some post-secondary things and whatever else. And there's some things that some schools will do that are online that maybe you're teaching kids in another district in a certain area or something like that. I'm not going to make this a formal question. If something pops into your head, you've got something to say, go for it, because it's sort of I'm springing this on.
I think that's definitely something to look at.
Yeah, and if we're talking about competing with other districts, if there's staff available, and if we can inquire and have the staff to do those kind of things without overloading somebody or asking, you know, then I think it's a great idea.
I think parents are looking for ways to save money. You could save, you know,
Kids too, yeah.
a college quarter because your kids got it in your school district. They still can be, you know, some kids are leaving, yes, but some kids aren't leaving because they want to be involved in that pep rally. And if they're not here, they can't do that. So I think that's disappointing. Do we, when you ask me more questions, have a work release? No.
We do somewhat, right? Some work release.
We have some.
Yeah.
I just know from my experience down at Bonnerup is we have a student that's available to us at 2:30 in the afternoon, and she comes in and does a lot of paperwork, does a lot of assisting us with different things. She does visitations at funerals, stuff like that. She's getting exposure with us. Would we love her to go back to school for molecular science? Absolutely. She's going to be a vet, which is fine. But, I don't think there's any company out there that's going to say, no, we don't want a student here for 2 hours to help file paperwork. I'm sure Schmidt's Trucking would love somebody to come file some paperwork for them. A law office in Topeka might welcome somebody to come in. And again, that's where that circle comes back around with that life experience. Maybe somebody wants to work in a law office and works there for their work experience and says, forget that, that's not for me. Maybe somebody got stuck there and realized that's what they wanted. So that's where our creativeness comes into play, I think.
Just throwing that idea, it's interesting to me too.
And I think I've experienced one of the disappointments I think I've witnessed over time is when we offer say a post-secondary class and we have that, or even in the secondary system, free students sign up, and it's back to the importance of that enrollment, to be in an enrollment where you can move things around. Obviously, we can't financially justify that teacher in that classroom for 3 students. So we've got pushback when that's your child that gets caught in that scenario of scheduling. It really stings because they need that class. So the other thing I would just like to mention about this, again, a little sense of my gray hair here too in the time that I've been here, but everyone remembers Mr. Sear, and Mr. Sear, I don't know if you'd call it fortunate, but lived through the invention of the smartphone coming into the classroom. And immediately, the resistance from Mr. Sear was those evil computers, keep them in their pocket, check them in at the front door. Those things have no business being in the classroom. And, thinking back on that is how that's evolved. Number one, you wouldn't get a student to part with their smartphone now, but we finally realized that it was a tool they could use. This was an asset instead of this hindrance in the classroom. And Mr. Sear still might argue that fact that it's an asset, but it is interesting to watch that technology come along, and you do have to almost force yourself as a district to keep up with it, maybe even trying to be a little bit ahead of it. So adjustment is key, I feel, in those areas, and always changing.
I feel like we've been kind of just ahead of the curve.
Sure.
Most of the time. Being in the classroom, we were one of the first area districts to do a 1-to-1.
Sure.
Stuff like that. So we're trying.
Yeah, and that's good to hear from staff because, as a board, and we have our committees and we meet more than that one meeting a month, but it's tough to really get that feel of what, and we have people in position to monitor that. Our administration is supposed to be in charge of that, but it's good to know what's going on there.
We'll get back to more, formal questions here now, but, that came from the public. Somebody wanted to know, and so we throw that out there too. As a board member, how do you make, how have you made your decisions? Where do you seek advice or input when there's an important decision to be made for the board? Pat? I love the nonverbals, by the way. So.
Where do I see? Could you repeat that?
Yeah, when you have to make a key decision, how are you going to go about making that decision? Where would you seek advice, or how do you think you might go about doing that?
Talking to staff, talking to administration, talking to parents, finding out viewpoints, finding out what's important to them, finding out what they think is working, not working. Wherever I can find who I could ask for information, and so I'd have a whole plethora of information to go by, and hopefully to go by and bring back. So I guess that's what I would do.
Okay. Rich?
Communication, just like Pat said, talk to people. If there's something you don't understand, always talk to the superintendent about it. We also have the ability to call up the school board association and ask them questions of how this actually should be done or whatever. So it's mainly communication.
I think that's one thing that's good about our board here at NRHEG. We've got a mixture of people with different age students within the system. Some that have gone through, and some probably have served that never had a student go through, which it takes that mixture, because sometimes it's easy as a board member when a tough question gets thrown out to say what's best for my individual child, and you have to be very, very cautious as a board member to not only look at that situation, because you're going to, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing for the district. We've merged elementaries, and again, I related that early in my career on the board. My gosh, my daughter's going to have to go all the way to Ellendale, and she was that tall, and I got a sinking feeling in my stomach about her being all the way over in Ellendale. And I came home after that meeting somewhat concerned about this big merger, and I asked her if she would care to go to kindergarten, if she would like to go to kindergarten in Ellendale. Yeah, and it was a very big lesson of kids will adjust. It's us parents, so be careful where you're basing that. If we're elected to the board, the community has asked us to represent that. You'll know in your gut if you're real honest and do the things these people are talking about, get your information, but it will work itself out.
I think one of the cool things about being on a board is, again, the diversity. You know, we're all different ages, we've grown up in different eras, we live and have different careers, we've gone to different schools possibly, or been here our whole life possibly. I could come to the table with a big idea that I think is going to be awesome, and then get shot down and realize that, hey, that idea wasn't really that cool. Been there, done that, you know, the city council. You always come up with big ideas and then find out financially, or it's just that's not going to play out how you think it's going to play out. And but that's what's fun about that, is that you get to sit here and powwow about it, and I get to hear different perspectives from somebody else, and maybe learn something from them, and vice versa. So, and not even just from the board, you know, we're just a board that has to make the final decision, but everybody else that's out there, the students, the taxpayers, the staff, and everybody else. Yeah, teamwork.
Every year, there are goals set in school districts. You know, the board sets goals, and administration and teachers set goals, and some of our students maybe even set some goals. How do you determine if you've met our goals? Not all of them are like number oriented, black and white. How do you determine, and then how do you move forward if you haven't met a goal? Rich?
Thank you.
Yeah.
You just kind of, I don't know, it's hard. It's a hard thing to do, because one person may say, yeah, we met this goal because we did this and this and this. The other person may say, well, we didn't reach that goal because we didn't do this, this, and this. So, I mean, you got to come to an agreement, got to talk about it, figure out if you have or haven't, and how you can reach those. And even push some of those goals a little bit further and try to expand on them.
Goals are a big part of a school district, whether it be in the classroom or here in the boardroom. Part of our training is setting goals, superintendent goals. Superintendent is our one employee that we have direct evaluation type work with. And the thing about goals is we always want them demanding enough so that we keep employees and the objective there ourselves working hard to get there. So we want to set them just a little bit maybe out of range, but yet not so far out that we're discouraged when we don't get there. And in all honesty, a lot of times we don't. Those goals, and you can step back and be disappointed that you didn't get there, but you have to continue to work and and push toward it. And as Rich has said too, somewhat opinionated. They're not all measurable in a real point type system. So part of the process, but don't get hung up if you don't meet them. But I think it needs to be part of the equation and part of the work that you do as a board.
Already going back to perspective, when you said that, I had a different perspective, and then when I listened to your answer, it was entirely different than what I was thinking of. My thought was student goals, and you know from running a classroom, you could set a goal for your classroom that we want this done, and you know when you're working with 25 different students, they're all going to have a different outcome. But I think if the students felt like they hit their goal, and they felt successful in hitting that, even though it might not have been what you thought it was going to be, it was what they thought it was going to be. So that's important. On the other spectrum, I guess when you're looking at a school goal, I mean, you always have to have goals. We all do on an everyday basis. You wake up, get to work on time, and all this other stuff that you want to get done in your day. Are you going to get it all done? No, probably not. You're going to hit a hurdle. You're going to have to overcome that hurdle, and then you're going to have to try to get that goal that you had for today done tomorrow. So, like I said, I think goals they're what get you through every day. They're what keep you moving forward. That's your passion. So, giving them rearranging. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm working with data. I was used to working with strategic goals and measurable goals, like percentages, but there are goals that you do not have the numbers with. In my experience, it's the expectation that was set. How well did we do? Maybe step back and retool, and then move forward and work toward it if we didn't achieve that goal, and then just keep pursuing.
As a school board member, occasionally you might have somebody who comes to you with an issue that they have with the school district. And that could be at any level. That could be in my classroom, that could be with an administrator, that could be with anybody. It could be just a whole school thing. How do you, set your role as a school board member and deal with those types of issues that come? Because there's some things that you directly are involved with and other things that, how do you deal with those people that are upset about things at all different levels of the school district? Rick?
Yeah, it does happen, and it should, because we do represent the community. The part they don't necessarily understand, if they were to come, with a real problem that they want fixed. I'll keep coming back to this. We hire a superintendent to manage and handle the day-to-day activities, and generally these are day-to-day activities that people become upset with. So number one, you have to start by listening to their concern, because absolutely they have the right to share that with you. I think you need to be respectful in that conversation, hopefully somewhat calming, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with having that conversation with these people. The thing where I think some of us could potentially make mistakes is thinking that we can solve that problem for them right then and there, or in the near future. And that's where I think that isn't the role of the school board member. I think from that point, when you've gathered that information from this person, I think you have a conversation with the superintendent. The superintendent needs to be made aware of the concern. And many times it's left with superintendent will follow up. It's probably news to this individual, or the superintendent didn't know that this concern existed. And 90% of the past history with myself, anyway, it's been taken care of from there. Now, if this individual isn't getting satisfactory results out of that being addressed through administration and the superintendent, it can continue back, and then the board member should continue that conversation with the superintendent as to why it isn't being resolved in a satisfactory. But most of the time, these people with those concerns, like you, if I'm understanding the question right, they mainly want to be heard and want to be respected, and generally it can be handled like that.
Being heard and being respected, that's huge. I think you don't go into a role like this not thinking, oh, nobody's ever going to talk to me, because that's probably not going to be true. I like to talk, so, I don't mind having a conversation about what can be done. I'm not going to be your fix-it tool, though, however, because I'm only one person. It takes a board, or it takes, other staff that can handle it more appropriately than myself. So, there should always be concern about something, especially if it's your tax money that's going towards something. You should find some value in that. Hopefully they will, but yeah, conversation. And I don't think that conversation has to stick with me, then I pass it on. If I don't know the answer, it can't solve it, it has to get solved somewhere. Or it has to be addressed somewhere along the line.
They addressed it very well. I think listening is very important. Listening, the respect of what they're saying, consideration of what they're talking about, and then being able to come back and take this issue to where it needs to be, to hopefully work toward, negotiating or resolving an issue, and then just keeping it if it doesn't. And hopefully calming too, very much. Yeah.
Customer service.
Customer service is right.
Rich.
I think everything's been covered. I mean, that was a pretty straight and narrow one.
So you're saying you want more difficult questions?
You've already done that. Yeah.
Amy, you get to go first in this one. Is there anything our district can do to make our schools more welcoming and safe for all of our students and staff? Or are we, doing a fairly good job of that? We can always improve, but if so, do we see anything we think we can improve on?
As a parent, I don't know the answer to that. My kids have never come home and spoken of anything that they felt unsafe here. My kids are, I think, a little bit more laid back than whatever, but the good thing about our school is that naturally, because we're small, we typically know who's walking in the door. Typically. So we have that going for us, I think. We have safety standards at our doors. Are they good enough? I don't know. You won't know that until they've been conquered, unfortunately. And unfortunately, there's been schools that probably had great systems that they thought worked well too. So I think as long as we're teaching our kids what to do in a critical situation and making sure that they're aware that they can happen, possible is a huge word. So make sure that we're aware of stuff, make sure that we're kind of watching out for our friends and making sure that you're as safe as you can be, that the teachers aren't being jerks when they're saying, hey, you can't leave the classroom at this time. Everybody's working together to keep everybody safe.
I think the district is doing a good job. I think our staff is doing a good job. I think we do the social emotional learning. We make all children feel like they belong and that they have a purpose in school. And I also feel that our staff, all the staff, support staff, custodian, cooks, nurses, bus drivers, and I think they work hard to connect and get those relationships with students that need to be. Safety of our school district. When we went ahead and redid the office in Ellendale, that worked out very well. Because unfortunately in this day and age, it is a concern. And I think we're doing a good job. It's something we always need to reevaluate and always look at.
I think we have done a really good job with the safety and security of our buildings, with the single entrance during the daytime. Like you said, we don't know if it's the proper thing to have done until something's going to happen. Then it's always too late. Well, we should have done this or should have done, well, you don't know. The welcoming part, I've been in both buildings and the staff are always talking to the kids. They're welcoming, they're calling them by name. You know, that's a lot of kids to know, you know, coming through our buildings. And I think it's like one big happy family is what it is.
Yeah, but I'm confident in our safety. You know, we spend time on it as a district and as a board. Again, the thing that I would reiterate on the part about safety is never get relaxed on the subject. Always be paying attention, and it doesn't have to be the number one focus, but never say it can't happen here. So continue to work on it. I think we've done some great things, and I'm comfortable with where we stand. The welcoming part, I would like to think we do a great job. I know in our last superintendent interviews, that was part of the understanding of this smaller rural district which we have here. Students want to know the superintendent. They want to know the principal. They want to see you. They want to have that, kind of that first name basis, respectfully. But so I think we're doing a good job with that in certain areas, but probably some room to improve in some too. And again, once you get the respect of that student, they know your name, they trust you, they can come to you if they have a bullying type situation, share that with you, and hopefully you can address that before it becomes a bigger problem. So we spend some time on it. There's always room for improvement.
I'm nearing the end here. I have one more. I kind of looked around. I thought I don't see any rabble rousers behind me. I could open the floor, but I think I'll leave. If there's people that are here that have specific questions, I mean, they can certainly visit with you guys too. But I wasn't really concerned. Anybody throwing some Molotov cocktail out here for us, but
You can see that coming. You can't.
Spider sense. So just one more thing to wrap it up. And Pat, you'll start on this one. You know, your strengths that you'll bring to the school board and any closing comments that you have.
I've worked in education for the past 24 years. I have been fortunate enough to learn a lot during that time in the areas that I worked in. Started as a paraprofessional, went into office management, went into data management. Had to work with the state, had to work with parents, had to work with staff. I think I'm a good listener, and I think that's important. I've been on various committees as a parent staff member. In closing, I guess what I want to say is it's responsibility of a caring community and board to help support, nurture, educate, and protect all of our students. We want to be that district of choice.
Rich? Would you want to repeat that one more time? Make sure I get it right.
Sure. What strengths will you bring as a school board member, and just any other final thoughts you might have?
I'm a very good listener. I try to direct things when I can to the right people. And I really love being on the board. I've learned a lot over the last 4 years, plus my time before. Worked with great people. And I try to be here for the staff and students and to help make sure everything is done right for them and for the district itself.
Well, I'd like to think that I'm a good listener and that I've had some experience on the board. Obviously, we're thrilled to have new people step up and be willing to serve with us. I think there's a certain amount of mixture that you need some experience and then some newness, and I'm pleased to hear from them saying how they want to learn, because it is totally a learning experience being on the board, and you don't understand it the first meeting, you don't understand it the first year, and you're gaining on it as time goes by. But so I think some of those strengths would perhaps help me continue, and I'd like to think I've done all right? Have we made every decision accurately and properly? Perhaps not, but I don't think anybody's expected to bet 100% there either. But and the second part of yours was, what was the other part of the question, Mark? Any other closing? I guess the other thing I would like to say, and I brushed on it, but I am so grateful for people being willing to serve over the course of time on this. We've always been fortunate, you as a community, the students of the district, the staff. We've had very level-headed people on this board. Again, you mentioned to start off, New Ulm has this type of a friction, and you see those school districts, and that is a very concerning for everyone. Everyone pays the price on those, and we don't have that here. And so thank you to the people that are willing to serve. I think you'll enjoy your time on it. And I sure have, and I would like to continue serving for another 4 years if I could. Maybe say that.
The part where we sell ourselves.
Yes.
I've been here, I've lived here, I've gone to school here. I'm not going anywhere. I love it here. Obviously, I mean, I don't work in town anymore, but part of the reason I went into my career is so I could continue to serve Northland, typically, people use that resource. I served on city council for 10 years. I got kicked off and then jumped out of town. I was a little bummed about that because I really enjoyed my experience there, and had I still lived in town, maybe I'd still be doing it. So just having that experience and understanding this one is not the same, but similar in certain senses, but continuing to make successful students, I think that's probably everybody's goal. I don't care if you're the superintendent or just the janitor, not even just the janitor, because school wouldn't be what it is if that person wasn't here either. But hopefully everybody in between and outside of the taxpayers and all the students think you go to school for a common goal to make sure that we're successful and that we're raising great kids. So I look forward to having the opportunity to be part of a board that gets to raise great kids, because what a great thing to be able to do.
All right. Well, thanks to our candidates for being here. And again, Aaron sends his regrets. And if you guys have questions, whether at home or here, I'm sure you can get a hold of Aaron and he'll be happy to answer those as well. Clearly, if you're listening at home, or if you're here, you're probably planning on voting November 8th. Yay. Go vote. And again, the board candidates are here. If anybody has any other questions, well, thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And please, right.
You the music.
Sorry, I have my iTunes up.
Yes. It's just like, even church have music at the end.
If you wanted to hit them, is that what you were saying? Maybe a good polka to take us on out.
Oh.